Hello YouTube, the brand new Genshin Impact 3.1 banner has just been announced on the Genshin Impact Twitter. Now today, I'm actually with my YouTube chat here because I'm actually streaming on YouTube instead of Twitch for a very specific occasion. But regardless, we're gonna go through the banner anyway, so let's talk about what my thought is, what I think about the overall value of these banners, as we do have two Xiangling banners. Nevertheless, as always, before we start, if you're not subscribed already, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. Starting off with the event features 5-star characters, we have Nilou. To be very honest, even though Nilou is not out yet, from what we can tell from the earlier 3.1 preview, I don't think she'll be a good role at all, I'll be honest. I actually don't think she'll be a good role at all. I think that unless you really like her, you have a lot of spare primo, and I mean a lot of spare primo, then you can consider rolling for her. I think right now, Nilou's biggest problem is we don't really have supporting Danjo characters in the game, and she potentially could be a good characters eventually down the line when we get more and more characters that are tailored to mate or bloom in channels. But for now, I think because we're too early in the Sumeru patch and we don't have those characters, that she's just not going to be a very good role. And I highly advise you to just skip the banner for now and wait for the next rerun. Maybe she'll be good by the next rerun when we get the detail about what Danjo Archon will do with new Danjo characters. And as always, I advise you to not roll on future potential. And so I would think to just skip for now, wait for the new Danjo character to come out, see if they pair well with Nilou, see if Nilou become really good with the new Danjo characters. And if you have primo to roll for those other Danjo characters, then decide if you want Nilou. I think this is one of the characters where I'll confidently say for now, skip it. Moving on, we have a rerun of Albedo. To be honest, Geo characters is kind of just not in a very good spot right now, especially with the new release of Danjo and Geo just not having a reaction with Danjo. I think right now, Albedo is a mediocre role. It's okay if you play Geo team, which is basically just Ito. If you're talking about the Genshin Impact meta, if you're a little less meta heavy, then Noelle could work. But in general, within the Genshin Impact meta, you only roll Albedo if you're an Ito main and you're fully committed to playing Geo team. Unfortunate news is that there's no Goro on the 4-star banner here. I think it would be really good if MiHoYo put Albedo and Goro, but unfortunately they didn't. So Geo team is very locked to having really strong Goro. Overall, I would say for most people, Albedo is probably just not a very good role since Geo is not in a very good spot. But if you do play Ito or you simply want a decent sub DPS, then Albedo is okay. Keep in mind that Albedo's signature weapon, Cinnabar Spindle, is a event 4 stars and is no longer obtainable. So the potential that you see from other people Albedo, like other people's review or just YouTube showcase, might not apply to you simply because you missed it on the event weapon, Cinnabar Spindle, and MiHoYo currently has no plan to bring it back. And so for you, the potential of your Albedo will already be lower if you're missing that out. Plus the fact that Albedo is just not a very good character make me really hesitant. Again, something to consider if you're gonna roll for it. Speaking of the 4 stars, we do have the Xiangling, which is going to be the real features character on this banner. Between all of these characters, Xiangling is probably the strongest character on the banner. So I think overall though, these banner kind of suck. So it's kind of terrible to pick up Xiangling Constellation for. Nevertheless, Xiangling Constellation are actually not that required. And the C0 Xiangling honestly performed really well already. C1 is alright. And then like C3 for increasing your elemental burst damage is alright, and then C4 is usually the one where people recommend, but I wouldn't recommend it so much to roll on these banner, and honestly it's not as important as most people think, to be honest. And then C5 and C6 is whatever, so I wouldn't really pull on the banner just to go for Xiangling Constellation when you could probably just pick her up slowly in the shop. Fine if you're gonna roll for the 5-star anyway, and being able to pick up the Xiangling Constellation conveniently is really good, but if you have no plan to roll on the 5 stars, then generally you shouldn't roll on the 4 stars, and this is the same. And then we have Beidou and Barbara. Beidou is a really good character, as always, a really solid electro sub DPS. Being able to pick her up is really solid. And then finally we have Barbara, who to be honest could potentially pair really well with Nilou. If you don't have Kokomi, then Barbara might be a required party member for Nilou. So being able to pick up Barbara is great. The problem is the Barbara Constellation kind of sucks. In fact, they actually just sucks. Not kind of. They actually just sucks. Being able to pick up the C0 Barbara for free through Genshin Impact event is honestly fine. None of her Constellation is game-changing. Like Constellation 1 generate you 1 energy every 10 seconds, which is like, let's say not very good. It's probably terrible. Constellation 2 allow you to increase 15% hydro damage for the on-field characters. That's fine. C3 talent level increase. C4 kind of regenerate 1 energy every single time your charge attack hit the opponent. Given that you don't really spam charge attack on Barbara anyway, plus 1 energy is just like whatever, pretty terrible. And then C5 standard talent level increase. Finally, we have C6 that revive you once every 15 minutes. Would come in clutch if you need it. it, I would imagine for most people, this constellation doesn't really play into effect. So overall, Brabla constellation is pretty terrible. And the fact that you can just pick up a base copy of the event mean that this slot, even though Nilou beat Brabla, is just not a very good slot. I honestly think putting Goro in would be so much better because of the Albedo here. And so we can pull Goro constellation, which not a lot of people have due to the fact that Goro is a late Inazuma characters. And then if you're pulling for Albedo, you might be trying to pair him with Ito, which means you do need Goro. Plus, Goro do work really well with Albedo as well, as Albedo is a defense scaling characters. Overall, because of that, I think these are terrible banner. I'll be honest, I think these character banners are terrible. Xiangling is great, but not really worth the... Oh, I guess Beidou is pretty decent as well, but not really worth the 5 stars or even the Barbara. Moving on to the weapon banner, we have... Hold on, something is wrong here. Where's the Vortex Sword? Starting off with the 5 stars, we have the good old J Cutter, which is one of the best sword in the game next to Mistbitter. It does give crit rate. Generally speaking, Mistbitter is a better weapon, but J Cutter is really solid, so that's pretty good. It appeared that MiHoYo has broken the curse of, well, we're gonna run these 2 5-star characters, so we're gonna put these 2 5-star signature weapon on. Either that, or they consider Cinderbar Spindles to be Albedo 5-star signature instead of Summit Shaper. And then I feel like it would be interesting if they put Summit Shaper on the 4-star gacha, but they did not. So, well, or whatever. J Cutter is a really solid weapon, one of the best weapon in the game, just giving really good amount of stat. But alongside it, we have the brand new 5-star weapon, Key of Kaha Bisu. Is that what it's called? Apparently, MiHoYo didn't tell us what the weapon do, but it's okay. If I use my Millennium necklace a little bit, which let me see into the good old Egyptian gods, I can actually predict what it does. So let me use my Millennium necklace a little bit, chat. So this weapon increases your HP, in addition to the fact that it has the effect that further increase your HP. And whenever your elemental skill hit a opponent, you gain a special effect that increase your elemental mastery based off your HP. Now, the thing about HP is sword is that there isn't really a sword character that really prefer HP. Chi-Chi doesn't count. Chi-Chi is not a real character. Plus, Chi-Chi scale of attack, so you're actually wrong. Now, the new 5-star character Nilou probably does scale of Big Chi, so it being her signature weapon, but it does unfortunately mean that no other 5-star characters will be able to utilize the sword. You can argue usable on Huki if you want to be a peer healer, but in general, the sword is only going to be usable on Nilou. If you are going to be a Nilou main, like you want to pull for Nilou and you want to pull for her weapon, this is a pretty good weapon banner just because both 5-star weapons are actually probably going to be usable on your Nilou, as J Cutter is a really strong weapon that provides good amount of crit, and then of course her signature weapon. But if you're not planning on pulling the signature weapon for Nilou, then I'll probably consider it to be a pretty meh weapon banner. Yeah, Cookie should be built with full elemental mastery because you're going to be playing her in Hyper Bloom, plus her heal does scale off elemental mastery if you have the constellation. If you for some reason want your Cookie to be a full HP healer, it's probably not something that you would go for. Like, there's no reason to go for this weapon just for that. It's a secondary use kind of coping, but yeah. Moving on to the 4-star though, we have Sacrificial Bow. This bow is fairly good. Generally speaking, it's a little lower tier than Fav bow, simply because most of the bow character prefer to run Fav if they do care about energy recharge. But if you don't have high concentration Fav, or you don't have enough Fav, then Sacrificial Bow could be usable. And I'm talking about character like Gordo, Elon, Venti is usable if you want ER, or like even Diona. These characters, generally speaking, prefer Fav if you're gonna run them with an ER weapon, but Sakbo is usable on all of them as well, so it's not the most terrible. And then Dragonbane is a really solid 4-star polearm, giving elemental mastery, and it's really good for every single reaction-based polearm characters, including Rosaria, Hotao, and of course Xiangling. We do have the brand new sword here. This sword is able to provide you with energy recharge based off your elemental mastery. And with elemental mastery being like a important stat with all the Danjo characters, or maybe even certain Anemo characters like Kazuha, I can actually see this weapon just being really good. To be very honest though, again, if you do care about energy recharge, there is always a really strong weapon called Faunia's Sword, which is really solid on all the sword characters. And I would say like, while this weapon could be good if you're a full elemental mastery focused character that require ER, I think by default, going phoniest weapon is just gonna be the answers. And I would think like this weapon banner is not good enough to pull just to justify one of the 4-star weapon, especially since if you're not a Nilou banner, the 5-star are not the greatest. And the 4 stars, we do have other things that you might miss on as well. Moving on to the other brand new catalyst, Wandering Even Star, which will do a similar thing as a sword where it provides you with elemental mastery substat and provide you with a effect where you can grant a part of your elemental mastery as bonus attack, and also providing your entire team with certain amount of the buff. Now the thing here is that the elemental mastery scaling characters for Catalyst right now in the game is just Sucrose, and honestly I don't think it's that important to go for on Sucrose. You do have the Hakushin ring available if you're gonna play something like a Hyper Bloom comp. Is Hazel elemental mastery? It's technically not. You could, but yeah, I wouldn't consider it. Providing attack buff based off your elemental mastery is interesting, as some comp doesn't utilize attack and elemental mastery on the base characters. For most part, most team might want one or the other. You can say like Hyper Bloom Sucrose would use elemental mastery on Sucrose and then attack on the other characters. But even then, there's again the Hakushin ring that allow you to achieve that. So I think the 4-star Catalyst is not important. It could potentially be useful in the futures as MiHoYo release more and more Catalyst related characters that are Dendro focused, for example like Nahida. But the answer is always CDDS, but not really, because nowadays there's Hakushin ring as well, so I didn't really want to say just use TDDS, but unfortunately that kind of still sent. Just use TDDS or Hakushin ring, I guess. Finally, we have Rain Slashers, which is actually pretty good weapon as it's able to provide elemental mastery as a substat and then a damage bonus passive if you're fighting against certain element or certain enemy that are infused with a certain element like Electros or Hydro. With how Dendro are trying to push elemental mastery, I mean the Rain Slasher could see its use case. In fact, it kind of already is seeing use in certain characters that kind of would like elemental mastery but also damage percent. It's okay weapon, to be honest. I think Rain Slashers have a pretty bad name when the game first started, called Pain Slashers, as none of the Claymore character really can utilize it that well. But as we move on with more characters just kind of liking elemental mastery, at least some amount of elemental mastery, and with its passive being more accessible, I think Rain Slasher is actually an okay weapon now. It's a cool weapon to have in your arsenal, even cooler if you can R5 it just in case you want to use it one day. But overall, it's not something that I would say like is super good, where Dragon Bane or even Sackbow, I would consider them to be a really good weapon, and I don't think Rain Slasher is that tier. So overall, to be honest, I think this weapon banner is like alright. It's alright if you want the 5 stars, especially like if you're pulling for Lilo's signature weapon. But if you don't, then it's a questionable banner. It's like a mediocre, low average banner, I think. 4 stars kind of weird. 5-star sword. Jade Cutter is great. The non-Jade Cutter sword, the Key Hop is kind of weird. So I would overall say these 2 banner, if I were to be very honest right now, is that they sucks. Group Xiangling. Look like we're not getting a Xiangling on the next banner. Sad. I was really hoping they just put Xiangling on the Nahida banner or something so that people can pick up the Xiangling. But oh well, I guess not. So with that being said, that is pretty much it. As always, YouTube Frog, and not Twitch chat, but YouTube chat, because I'm streaming on YouTube right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you guys next time, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And bitch.